was late, and the dorm had gone quiet, the way only old buildings do, where the silence feels thicker than air. I was sitting up in bed, scrolling through notes, when I heard it. Footsteps in the hall. Slow. Heavy enough to carry. Light enough to be careful. At first I thought it was just someone heading to the bathroom, but the steps didn't fade. They paced. Back and forth. Right past my door, then away, then back again. I held my breath, waiting to hear a door open. Nothing, just the measured tread of someone walking a line they never meant to finish. Finally, I slipped out of bed and cracked our door, expecting to catch whoever couldn't sleep. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. The sound stopped the moment I looked. I closed the door, heart thumping, telling myself it was nothing. This building threw sound all the time. But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like the hallway had paused to watch me. That was the first night I admitted to myself the dorm wasn't just old, it was aware. Good evening, and welcome to Midnight Horror Society. Here we take the strange and the chilling and tell them slowly, like whispers meant for the night. Before we begin, take a second to like the video and subscribe only if you feel at home here. In the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always comforting to see how many of us are awake together in the dark. So dim the lights. Let the sound of the night, rain, crickets, or just the quiet of your room settle around you. Get comfortable. And when you're ready, let's step into tonight's story. I was in nursing school back then, living in a campus dorm just outside my hometown. The place had been around forever, or at least it looked that way. Stone walls, tall windows, narrow halls that carried every noise further than it should have gone. Our room was cramped. 4 of us squeezed into a space meant for 2. 4 beds jammed to the corners, 4 tiny closets, 1 strip of floor we learned to share sideways. The rent was cheap, which was all that mattered. Everything else was worn out. Paint peeling in long curls, faucets that hissed all night, windows that let drafts slide in even in July. We put towels under the sills and taped what we could, but nothing kept the air from feeling tired. And the building had history. People said it used to be a church, later an orphanage. The rumor everyone repeated was the fire. Some said a dozen children died. Others added the nuns who cared for them. No one agreed on the number, but the tone was always the same. Hushed, like saying it too loud might wake something. I never found a plaque or record. Just stories told with the kind of certainty that doesn't need proof. At first, I brushed it off. I was practical. Lights flickered, old wiring, a drawer slid open on its own. Uneven floors, a sudden chill, even in summer. Bad windows. You can explain anything if you want it enough. But night in that dorm had its own rules. The pipes ticked, the wood groaned, and sometimes from nowhere, a single footstep would sound on a floor no one was standing on. I told myself it was just the building settling. I kept telling myself that. Until the footsteps started stopping right outside my door. The first weirdness was easy to shrug off. Lights. In a building that old, you expect bad wiring. But it didn't feel like wiring. The overhead in our room would buzz, flicker once or twice, then die for half a breath. We'd all glance up, wait, and it would come back steady like nothing happened. One night I counted. The flickers came at the same time every hour, almost like a clock. I laughed it off. Old circuits, probably on a cycle. My roommate Clara said, yeah, or it's the ghosts changing shifts. We laughed, but it didn't sound like a joke. Then came the pacing. Always at night, when the hall should have been empty. Slow, deliberate steps. The kind that aren't trying to be heard, but aren't trying to hide either. The first time I got up angry. I opened the door to tell whoever it was to cut it out. The hallway was empty, every door shut, not even a draft. The second time, I stayed in bed and just listened. The steps stopped right outside our room. My skin prickled like it does before a thunderstorm. The third time, my roommates admitted they'd heard it too. We lay there, all four of us, pretending to sleep while those careful steps came and went outside the door. None of us wanted to say we were scared, but no one wanted to open the door again either. One night I woke to a soft shuffling inside the room. It sounded like fabric brushing the floor. Not footsteps, lighter, slower. Like someone moving carefully in the dark. I sat up. My eyes adjusted enough to see all three of my roommates breathing steady, asleep. The sound kept going, a steady slide. I stared at the corner near the dresser, willing my eyes to find something there. Nothing but shadow. When I shifted in bed, the noise stopped. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it filled the silence. I lay back down. A minute later, it started again, faint, deliberate. I wanted to say something, but my mouth stayed shut. Eventually, it stopped. By morning, I convinced myself it had been the curtain moving in the draft, but the window was latched tight. A few weeks later, Sarah, the quiet one in our room, decided she was moving out. She had a friend across campus with a spare bed. She came back early one morning to pack. The rest of us were still half asleep when she screamed. We shot up, hearts in our throats. Sarah was on the floor by her suitcase, pointing at the corner near the ceiling. By the time we scrambled to her, it was empty, but Sarah was shaking, pale, tears running down her face. She couldn't even speak for a full minute. When she did, it came out broken. There was a head. Just a head, no body, floating. It was looking at me. She described its mouth stretched wide, eyes like black holes that swallowed the light. We tried to tell her she imagined it, but none of us really believed our own words. She packed what she could carry and left that day. If Sarah's morning rattled us, Clara's night shattered whatever calm we had left. Clara was the brave one. She laughed at scary movies, walked first into dark basements. But one night, close to midnight, she came back from the vending machine. She said she passed an empty room in the old wing and glanced inside. Rows of rusty bed frames, bare mattresses. And on those mattresses, shapes, thin, pale, twisted with pain. One lifted its head and looked right at her. In a rasping voice, it whispered, "Help us." Clara froze, then bolted, running so fast her footsteps woke half the hall. When she told us, we grabbed flashlights and checked the room together. We found the beds, rusted and broken. No figures, no voices. Clara never walked the halls alone again. That was when even I stopped pretending it was all drafts and bad wiring. Something lived in that dorm. Or maybe it had never left. By then, the dorm had a rhythm of its own. Flickers, footsteps, whispers we couldn't place. Sarah was gone. Clara wouldn't walk alone. The rest of us just tried to get through the semester. I had a habit of staying late in the common room. I liked the hum of the vending machine, the brighter lights, the way the quiet helped me focus. Most nights I walked back down the hall with my notes in hand, tired but calm. This night was no different. Until it was. The corridor was dim, lit by old bulbs that buzzed like mosquitoes. My shoes echoed too loud on the wooden floor. Halfway to my room, I caught it. A whisper. At first, I thought it was someone on the phone. But the words didn't make sense. They weren't even full words. Just broken sounds like a conversation muffled behind glass. I turned. At the far end of the hallway, under the weak light, stood a figure, a woman. She wore a black habit, the kind nuns used to wear, the veil falling heavy over her shoulders. But her head tilted too far to the side, like her neck couldn't hold it right. Her fists were clenched tight at her sides. She stared straight at me. I blinked hard, telling myself I was overtired, seeing things. There hadn't been nuns on this campus in decades. The nearest convent was miles away. But when I opened my eyes again, she was still there, closer this time. Not walking, not moving, just closer. Panic rushed in. I turned, nearly tripping over myself as I hurried toward my room. My hands shook on the keys. Lift, hold, turn. The lock wouldn't catch. My breath came short and sharp. I dared one look back. The hallway was empty. I almost laughed with relief as the door swung open. But the cold hit me first, sharp, sudden, bone deep, like I'd walked into a freezer. And then I saw her. A little girl, no older than 5, ran straight out of my room. She darted past me, bare feet slapping the wood, her laughter soft and high. She glowed faintly, like she carried her own light. I froze. My brain told me to chase, but my body wouldn't move. I just stood there, watching her run down the hallway. She didn't look scared. She looked happy, free. She vanished into the same corner where the nun had been standing. And then the nun followed. She didn't walk. She glided, her habit trailing just above the floor, her face twisted with rage. As she passed me, her eyes snapped to mine. Hollow. Endless. For the briefest second, I couldn't breathe. Her anger felt like it was burning into my skin. And then she was gone, too, chasing the child into the dark. The hallway went silent again. The air lifted just slightly, like the building had been holding its breath and finally let it out. I stood there with my keys in hand, my door half open, my heart beating so loud it drowned out the hum of the lights. I knew then that Sarah hadn't imagined her head in the corner. Clara hadn't imagined the sick beds. None of it had been imagination. The dorm wasn't just old, it was still occupied. After that night, the dorm changed for me. The footsteps didn't come back. The whispers stopped. Even the flickering lights steadied. But the silence wasn't comforting. It was the kind of silence that feels like someone's listening. Sarah never returned. Clara avoided that wing whenever she could. The rest of us got through the semester by pretending nothing had happened. Like ignoring it might make it forget us. I didn't tell anyone outside the room. Not because I was scared they'd laugh, though they would have, but because saying it out loud felt like inviting it back. Weeks later, I heard the story again. A professor mentioned it in passing. Decades earlier, when the campus was still an orphanage, a fire had swept through one of the old wings. Children trapped inside, nuns who stayed behind trying to save them. They said the fire had left scars on the building. I thought about the little girl, her laughter trailing down the hall, her glow like a candle no one could put out. I thought about the nun's face, her fury, her hollow eyes. Maybe they weren't separate. Maybe one couldn't leave without the other. I never saw them again. Not the child, not the nun, but that night carved itself into me. Every time I walked an empty hallway afterward, I felt it. The weight pressing down. The sense that someone was a step behind, even years later in hospitals or libraries or hotels. Long corridors carry the same charge. And every time, my eyes flicked to the far end, half expecting to see a black veil tilted wrong, fists clenched at her sides. I'm older now, practical as ever. I still tell myself I imagined parts of it. Stress, fatigue, too many horror stories whispered in too many cramped rooms. But when I remember Sarah's scream, Clara's pale face, the cold breath that sank into my bones, the child's laughter and the nun's stare, I can't explain it away. Some buildings don't let go of their dead. Some dead don't let go of their buildings. And I know this. If you ever find yourself in an old dorm and the footsteps stop outside your door, don't open it. Because the silence might just be waiting to see if you're worth following. I've carried this memory for years, and I'll never forget it. Have you ever had a night you still can't explain? Let me know in the comments.